Good morning, everybody. This is Inga Cotton. I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms. It is Friday, March 27th, and I'm on a happier note. It's Charter Moms Chats, and I wanted to talk about socializing and like how we're keeping our kids in touch with their friends and kind of what's happening with their school friends. And I want to hear from you all about how this is working. But first of all, I want to point out that I have my Great Hearts Monte Vista spirit shirt today, and because it's a kind of unofficial spirit day. Today, if the kids were in class, it would have been a spirit day. It would have been a half day, right? Usually the last Friday of the month, the kids don't wear their uniform shirts. They wear a spirit shirt instead. So we at home are wearing our Great Hearts Monte Vista spirit shirts, and I'm going to take a family picture with my kids and posting that on social media because that's the closest we can get to having a spirit day. So I don't know, whatever you've been doing. I've seen some cute posts of like hat day and pajama day and like arts and crafts and stuff. And it makes me really happy to see, these things that we're doing, to find connection even when we, we're in our homes, but we can do things as collectively as a community and share them. And it's not the same as being at school, but it's fun. And I've seen really cute posts about like teddy bear hunt or like rainbows and stuff. So like holler, like comment or click if you've done that. Like go around your neighborhood. And so some folks are putting like either an actual teddy bear or like a picture of a teddy bear in their front window. And then when you go on a social distancing walk in your neighborhood, you look for all the teddy bears in the windows. And there's actually even like maps, like map pins showing where to find the teddy bears. Okay, my doorbell's ringing. I think we may be getting a delivery. I'll just have to get back to that later. Where was I? Oh yeah, and then rainbows too. So I think in New York City in particular, they have rainbows on the in the windows instead of just teddy bears. So I think those are fun ideas. If you are doing something like that in your neighborhood, or you have an idea like that to share, comment. Or also, I'm encouraging everyone, if you're not already, please join the San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group because we share ideas like that in there. And it's a way to like keep our spirits up and keep feeling connected. So if you've been on a teddy bear hunt or a rainbow hunt, or you have some other idea, something like that, or you've been doing, if today's a spirit day for your school community or just for fun, post a picture in the comments of what you're doing to show spirit. So so every morning I check in with my assistant online, and we were talking about like sort of what are the needs that we're trying to take care of. Obviously safety is very important. That's why we're staying home, right? Is to practice social distancing and slow down the spread of germs so that our medical system does not get overwhelmed by people who are having a severe reaction to the novel coronavirus. So safety obviously comes first, but we all want our kids to keep getting educated, right? And so I've had a lot of posts this week about like how is distance learning working, how are we using technology. Yesterday I got a little salty, thinking about like, looking at like what information are we getting from our kids' teachers? Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? We've had a good experience this week, but I want to hear from parents about how it's working for them. We definitely want to keep our kids' spirits up. And, depending on the kid, going to school, a big part of it for them has been just seeing their friends and socializing. And let's see, our kids' school, it's been pretty low tech, so you just download the packet. But for other schools, I've seen really cute pictures of like Zoom calls or Google Classroom or Hangouts and stuff where kids get to come together. So what I'm hearing is that it kind of depends on the teacher and how they're managing the online classroom. Like sometimes it's like the teacher will just like mute all the participants and just present the math lesson and then kind of check everyone's work. And there's definitely a time and place for that, right? Because we want our kids to keep progressing in their learning. But I think sometimes I've heard of like kind of virtual homeroom where like the kids get to kind of socialize, and they're just so excited to see each other's little faces on the screen. And I'm really happy that things like that are still happening. Again, the digital divide is an impact or matters here, because like some kids are not able to participate because they don't have access to technology. Doing video over the internet takes a lot of that uses up a data plan pretty quickly. So that's why we need an infrastructure effort to so that more families can access these things from home. So yeah, I'm curious to hear, like, have your kids participated in something like that through their school? I think some families are kind of organizing things informally. But one thing that Laura and I were talking about is like, we kind of took it for granted that our kids could go to school and see their teachers and see their classmates. And, maybe like if there was a birthday party coming up, we would pass out send a stack of invitations to school. But it's not like we had like every other parent in the class, like in our contacts, in our phone. Some of the kids that my daughter's really close to, I would see the moms and dads at pick up and drop off, but we never got around to exchanging phone numbers. And now I'm kind of wishing I had been more proactive about that. So our school this year was the first time that we actually had a printed directory, but not every family chose to participate in the directory. So we're going to be reaching out to some folks through that. Our campus does have parent organized grade level groups on Facebook. I know different schools have different policies about that. Some have a campus-wide group. Some have classroom-based groups. It's always a challenge with online groups to try to keep it on, keep it positive. Sometimes those things turn into places where people complain and there's a lot of negativity. But at least at our school community, I feel like we have a team that keeps things helpful, keeps things positive. If there is a concern, that really needs to be addressed directly with the teachers and the admins, not just complain. Just complaining on the internet doesn't change anything, right? If you really want to change something, you have to go out and do something. Contact the person who has the power to make decisions. That's just a life skill. So, but so like when we, are sharing our Spirit Shirt pictures today, a lot of that's going to be in the parent groups on Facebook. So, it's hard because not everyone uses Facebook. I understand, privacy concerns and stuff. Although if you don't use Facebook, you're probably not watching this video. So, I'm curious to know how your school community is keeping in touch. How are your kids connecting with friends? So, one thing that I set up for my daughter was a little online schedule so that her friends can log in. Actually, her friends' moms can log in and say like, oh, look, hey, she's available, on this day at this time, and let's schedule a video call. And then it's a way, some of our friends are actually pretty busy, like between like their schoolwork, and then some of them are continuing their lessons, but they're doing it in a virtual way, right? So acting class, but over a Zoom call, and trumpet lessons or piano lessons or guitar lessons, but by Zoom. It's amazing how creative people are being about offering their services in an online format. It's really amazing. But the other thing we're trying to figure out is like which games can you play without being face to face. So like with a card game, it's hard because you don't know where the cards are in the deck or which cards are in your hand versus the other person's hand. So if you have a solution for that, let me know. So far, let's see. So my son has been playing Minecraft with a friend of his, but they had yesterday he was trying to download the same mod that his friend was using, and just I don't know. It just kept having technical issues with the mod. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they can get it working. My daughter tried to play Battleship with a friend who lives in Chicago, and but then they realized they had different editions of Battleship. I didn't know that was a thing. But yeah, like it has to be, like the grid has to be the same, right? So you can play Battleship remotely, but it has to be the same edition. So I'll get with them and find out like which edition they have. Maybe we can get that delivered to us. And then what else? Oh, so they defaulted to chess because chess has not changed in a long, long time. So a chessboard is a chessboard is a chessboard pretty much. So so that worked out well. And then I've noticed a lot of my daughter and her friends, they want to show each other their stuffed animals. So I know my daughter's 10, but that's still a good age for stuffed animals, right? So so they're doing kind of like meet and greet with all the stuffed animals. Yeah, so that's, oh, I've got a comment here. Okay, so Diana says so she's at ECLA, which is the Eleanor Kolitz Hebrew Language Academy. So that's a charter school that teaches like Hebrew language, Israeli history and culture. She says the PTO organized a class level Zoom meeting. Oh, I bet that was great. I bet the kids were really excited to like get in touch with their classmates that way. So Diana, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I guess one thing that and I'll dig up the link, when you are doing things like Zoom calls, it's good to know how to I would say don't set it as a public meeting, like create a link and then have like sort of a PIN or a password that people need to use to log in, and that way you won't have like strangers joining the meeting. So especially with kids, and try to have like some adult supervision in it, whether if it's at school there will be a teacher online, although I'm sure the teachers are very busy, and then so just make sure that there's some adult supervision, just so we're keeping our kids safe and not having them go into like public spaces. So I know there's some games that have online components. We're pretty selective about what things we let our kids have accounts on. We're open to trying new things because these are kind of strange circumstances, but we really do want to keep our kids safe. And if you have suggestions on resources for that, please let me know, like either comment or send me a private message, because I want to keep sharing that information out there. Like we're all trying to adapt to this world, and we want our kids to be happy, but we want to keep them safe when they're online as well. So okay, so those are my thoughts about how we're helping our kids socialize. I'm curious to hear what all is working for you all. It sounds like the Zoom calls and the getting classes together is a good strategy, and it just as Laura and I were talking this morning, it feels like like we switched over to this distance learning thing, but it seems like it's going to keep going for a while, and it seems like things keep changing, right? Like as people use the tools, they innovate and they find new solutions. So it'd be interesting to see how things keep evolving. So be safe, have a good weekend, maybe catch some sunshine, and I will be back on Monday with another Charter Moms Chat. So thanks, y'all.